Hello, America. I'm Robert Reese, and welcome back to the CEO Show. We're here today with Steve Jones. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Robert.
And always good to see you, Steve, because Steve is the CEO and global chairman of Allied Universal. So let's just give a snapshot in the first question about what Allied Universal is.
Yeah. Allied Universal is the global leader in integrated security solutions and facility services. We operate in more than 100 countries, and we have over 800,000 employees.
So, so let's go into that. When you took over the company, Allied Universal, it had 400 employees. You've grown that to 800,000. I don't know that anyone else, well, very few people in the world know how to do something like that. I believe you're the third largest private employer in America. You also grew from $12 million to $23 billion. Really walk us through exactly what you did and how that happened.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, when you put it in perspective, it always seems astonishing. Obviously, I've been doing it since 1996. So when I started with the company, as you said, we were 12 million in revenues and 400 employees. We were just in Orange County in a small little office in Los Angeles. Today, obviously, we are the market leader, not only in the US, but for that matter, around the world. Um, you know, it was very strategic, and so I don't want to rule out that there was some luck along the way, and that we made some good breaks for ourselves. But we always thought when we were a small company, when I first came in, I put together a business plan for the original founders of the business, saying I thought we could build this business to $1 billion business. And there were a handful of $1 billion security companies at that time located and headquartered here in the US. And so I thought, just looking at the landscape, looking at how important security was, looking at our competitors and kind of seeing, the quality of those organizations that we could truly build $1 billion security company. And along the way, it's been a constant, a couple of things. One, first and foremost, we've always focused on organic growth. And when we were smaller, we were growing 30, 40, 50% a year organically. Obviously, today at 23 billion, it's mid-single digits, right? And so that organic growth part has gotten harder and harder because it's on a much bigger number. And then, along our journey, we grew the company to about 50 million in EBITDA and about 700 million in revenues. And we decided to make acquisitions. And it started with our first acquisition, and it was a small little company up in San Francisco. I had built a relationship with the founder and the owner, and we were able to work out a deal where we gave them a little bit of cash. They took a seller note, and we were on our way with our first acquisition. And acquisitions are tricky. A lot of people, everybody loves to make an acquisition, right? And I always tell everyone, it's not negotiating the deal. That's actually the easy part, right? The hardest part is actually integrating that acquisition and getting the pro forma adjustments that you want out of that acquisition. And so we were highly successful in doing that. And so that gave us confidence. We did number two, then we did number three. Fast forward now from that period in time in 2010 when we did our first 2009, 2010 we did our first acquisition. We've done over 110 acquisitions. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's been a combination of building Allied Universal, which was what was originally the Universal Protection Service, which was that small company headquartered in Orange, California, and Allied Barton, which was that big company out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and putting those two together and then continuing to make acquisitions. And so between that, our organic growth, it's been very, very strategic decisions along the way. And we're really proud of what we built because, it's we've been able to keep a culture that's focused on people and focused on our clients. And so we're super proud of it.
Congratulations on that. And when you think about managing a massive company with 800,000 people, what is your core leadership philosophy to grow the company and to keep everyone on the same page?
Yeah. Well, I think, leadership starts at the top, right? So it starts with me, and I say that because I lead from the tip of the spear, and I would never ask anyone to do anything I'm not willing to do. And so that's an important statement because that's my same expectations for all my leaders. So when we have our monthly, or sorry, our weekly calls, we have a weekly leadership call every Monday with our senior leadership team around the country. And that's what I talk about is setting expectations, and the expectations start at the top. And so whether it's an employee issue, whether it's a client issue, whether it's a financial issue, whether it's taking accountability, it starts with those leaders that are on the phone. It starts with me, and then obviously we have to communicate that down. I think communication is also critical, right? So you can't manage 800,000 employees, and you just think kind of command and control like the military. In the military, people have to do, what you command them to do. In business, as you know, and your readers and listeners know, that's not necessarily the case. They can do whatever they want. They often do. They often make their own decisions. We try to empower them to make decisions, right? So it's really about communicating the why and what we're trying to do, and that's absolutely critical because that gets them to buy into the vision of the future. And we created this business, just like I said, when we were $12 million with 400 employees. Like, we created this business by creating a vision, and all we did was talk about that vision. And I remember we had milestones along the way. We had these engraved water wine bottles, and we said we were going to open them up, we were going to drink it, we are going to celebrate it. And it was 250 million by a certain year, and then once we hit 250 million, we had a party, and then we did 500 million by a certain year, and then we had the $1 billion wine bottle. Now, obviously, we don't have those because we're 23 billion, but it's still the same thing. It's communicating that message, and that message, is what we want to accomplish and where we're trying to go as a company.
Do you have any unique practices as a CEO that you say, this is what I do specifically?
Yeah, look, I think I fall back. I take a lot of things from my football experiences. My and I love the game of football, and so I played it in college. My both my kids play it, and one's in college, the other will be playing it in college, the other will be playing it in college, and so it's interesting because I've my kids kind of grew up around the same philosophies, and so I always look at our organization and I tell everyone a couple of things. One, you'll hear me use terms like, well, let's watch the film, right? And the film don't lie. And I know that's not perfect English, but those are statements that coaches made to me all throughout my life. And what do I mean by that? Well, if we think we did something really, really well, let's go back and dissect it, and let's really deep dive it, and let's watch the film. And let's see, did we really do it as well as we did? Because, a lot of times you think you had a good game, and then you turn on the film and you go, well, I missed that block. We had penalties on that, missed that tackle, all those things that you go, gosh, I could have played better. I could have done this better. We could have done that better. So I really push our team and our organization to watch the film. Why is that important? Because that's how you get better, right? That's how you improve. That's how we continue to drive the organization. If the day we think we know it all and that we've gotten everywhere we want to go and that we're the best, I mean, that's the day to be worried, right? Because at that point in time, that's when complacency sets in. And so we don't want to be there, right? We're always kind of on that passionate pursuit of excellence, and you never achieve it, right? You just, you're striving for greatness, but you never quite get there. And that's the world of sports, and I think that's the world of business. The other thing you'll hear me talk about with our team is the locker room, and I heard you mention it when we kicked off this conversation. And you'll hear me say to my team all the time is I say this is a locker room conversation. And what do I mean by that? I mean by that that's where you can disagree with me. That's where you can communicate openly. That's where, as a team, we can debate things because we're in the locker room. That's where you have those conversations. When we get out onto the field, that's when we're playing the game. And when you're playing the game, you can't second guess the coach's call. You can't get in an argument with a teammate, right? When you're playing the game, you got each other's back. You're executing the play that's called. You may not like it, but you're executing that play. In the locker room is when you can have those discussions. And so I really try to get our team to understand those, and we have honest and open conversations. And literally every meeting we have with our leadership team, I'll end the meeting with usually an hour to 2 hours, and we'll say, okay, we'll go around the room. It's our locker room time. And Robert, you'll get a chance to say, I disagree with this, I agree with that, I don't know about this strategy, and we'll talk about it, right? Because that's their opportunity to second guess the coach, right? But then when we leave that locker room, we're all on the same page.
I love that. So, what is the website for anyone who wants to learn more about Allied Universal?
Super simple, just www.aus.com.
There you have it. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to find out from Steve what was his transformative moment in life. Stay tuned, back in a few. Hi, this is Robert Reese back on the CEO Show, where we interview the CEOs who have reinvented the fabric of America. We're here today with Steve Jones, who is the global chairman and CEO of Allied Universal. And Steve, you've done something few people in the world have done, built a company from 400 people to 800,000. What was a core transformative moment in your life? And maybe if you have one personally and you have one in business, that's even better.
Yeah, great. Um, well, Robert, there's the personal one would be when I was in high school and I continued to keep getting injured. I had three shoulder surgeries before I ever played a down of college football. And most people after three surgeries would have given up on their dream. And I had many of people, including my parents, coaches, just to try to convince me to go do something else. But my dream was to play college football. My dream was to try to play professional football. And I loved the game growing up. And so by going through, all that I went through and having to persevere and having to work my way back each and every time and having to face all the doubters, having to face the self-doubt. What that did was, when I accomplished my dream and being able to play college football, it really made me understand that you truly can have a dream, you can truly have a vision, and you can actually go out and accomplish it. And so by doing that, I knew I could transcend that when I got into business. When I got to Allied Universal or Universal Protection Service back in 1996, and I was talking to the owners, they didn't believe me when I said this could be $1 billion business. They looked at me like I was crazy. My partners that worked with me looked at me like I was
And now
crazy.
it's $23 billion.
Right. Now it's 23 billion. And so I knew I could do it because I'd been doubted before. I had self-doubt before. I just knew it was going to take a lot of hard work. It was going to take dedication. It was going to take just an unwavering commitment, right? It was just all those things I had to go through in football that I could do that. From a business side, there's so many, but I'll give you kind of one that kind of encapsulates what I think makes Allied Universal special. It's really how we handle crises, and really that single point that was the day of 9/11. I'll never forget where I was. I'll never forget what I did. I literally was on the phone starting at 6 in the morning. I was racing up to Los Angeles to evacuate buildings. I had to get in my car and drive to San Francisco because you couldn't get on planes and evacuate the Transamerica Pyramid Building, which was our only client at the time up in San Francisco. But what transpired after that was we really built a discipline and learned how to manage and handle crises. And we literally built the company that way. We went out and we met with all of our clients, and we put together this roadshow on how to prepare our clients and what we were going to do differently from a security perspective in the aftermath of 9/11. And we gave them a comfort level. And how that transcended our business from 9/11 till now is we've been through active shootings, workplace violences, LA fires, riots, protests, civil unrest, hurricanes, natural disasters. I mean, I can just think of all of these disasters or emergencies that we've been through, right? And wars, over internationally right now that are taking place, and each and every one of those times, we've had the same calmness, put together a plan, how we're going to help our customers, how we're going to help people. And it really has separated Allied Universal from our competition. Matter of fact, I was just yesterday, I was in New York City and we put on a seminar for all of our customers there, in the aftermath of the 345 Park shooting that took place in New York City and what's going on today with the war in Iran and the uncertainty there and existential threats that are coming from that in the threat of potential terrorist attacks. And so once again, back to that 9/11 example, we're still doing it today to separate and differentiate ourselves and to try to give our clients that level of comfort that we've got a partner that's got our back, that's thinking through what's important and how do we keep our people, our business, and our communities safe.
Yeah, that is great. So let's talk about AI in the world and what's happening there in security and and why security is at the center of the infrastructure in America.
Yeah. Well, as you know, AI is, the biggest buzzword for the last 12 to 24 months, right? We've actually been working with AI since literally 2016. And AI was being rolled out in camera systems and access control systems, back in 2016, 2017. So like literally it's been in our industry, in the security industry for quite some time. I know it's the popular buzzword and every business, every earnings call, every CEO, they're talking about AI, right? I think what separates us, and I'm not saying other businesses aren't using AI, and so I certainly don't want to offend any readers or listeners because I know a lot of people are using AI throughout their businesses. But I think it is also relatively new, so there's people are trying to figure out how to implement it in their business and how to actually get real results out of it. And so I'll give you some real specific examples within Allied Universal. In 2016, we created a handheld management device for our security officers, which allows us to push information and collect information. So we're collecting data. So as our security professionals are in and around our customer sites, they're taking notes or they're interfacing with people. They're looking at potential security threats. Our lights out, our cameras working, are they not working? Our doors locking or unlocking? They're walking facilities saying all clear. We're gathering all that data and we're analyzing all the data. We built an AI algorithm in 2016 that literally does that entire analysis. All that was done by hand before by chief security officers in the security departments. They would take all these manual reports and they'd go and they'd say, do we need to add extra security here? Do we have a potential threat here? Are we protecting our intellectual property here, or is that a weakness? Now, as we gather that data, we provide that information instantaneously. We're producing reports for them. The other thing is it's really helped our customers with safety. We can show literally demonstrated reductions, and so we have results that say by the use of our technology, the customers that use our technology have a 20% reduction in safety incidents, slips, trips, and
Wow.
falls. Yeah. So you say, well, how does that help slips, trips, and falls? Well, as we're walking